Hello, we've got another animation here by Nika107 on Twitter and also on YouTube, so check him out. So I'll just play it and you can have a look. I think overall the timing of it was pretty good. If you were playing this in a game, it would be satisfying and feel nice. That's good. I think it's mostly pose stuff I had notes on. Note one, and this is going to be a recurring note, I believe, throughout. Just getting the flow through the wrist. If you look at this one, it feels a little broken. If you look at your own hand, it's very, very hard unless you're, really pushing it and maybe doing some wrist exercises to get your wrist to be that flexible, to get such a right angle like this. So generally, it doesn't feel like he's also pushing against this board. It just feels like his hand is resting there. So I definitely get this kind of flow through that hand and into the arm. There. Same goes for the other side, really. Feels a little too bent. These angles do feel a bit broken. I think you want more flow through there. Here it does feel like there's an opportunity to get a bit of a breakdown in here where you can kind of bend these fingers, get a little bit of anticipation for the pose that you're going into, and it will also help with the drag through here. I'd also do a little bit of overlap on the thumb here. You've got this kind of hard kind of hit into this gun. I think it would be nice to have the thumb as kind of something visual that we can kind of latch onto to use as something which is overlapping, giving us follow through, and which is in turn guiding our eye, telling us where we've been and where we're going. Don't have to go as crazy as I've done with it, but it does feel a little stiff right now, and I do think that would help. Another note I had for this pose was the fingers feel like you've just grabbed the controls and rotated them in X in. So I think you just want to rotate them in Z a little more and just get them to be a bit more of a natural pose in the hand there. If you kind of act this out, you'll see that the fingers almost angle up towards the thumb, kind of treat this as one shape, and you want to make this as simple as possible. So having this gap here is not so helpful, and having something a little more like this will just kind of make all of that one shape, and then have this as another shape, which acts as the gun. So so if he's not holding this side of the panel with his hand, then I'm not sure what he's holding it with here. I can think of some things, but I think you really want to see this connection on there, get this finger, a nice straight line, maybe even overlap the fleshy part of the hand there, have the thumb out. It doesn't feel like he's holding it at all yet. Just that same note on flow through the arm. Feeling a hesitation here in this hand, and I think we want to lead the eye with this hand. So maybe have it be up here, heading towards the can, because this pose isn't really telling us anything. It tells us that he's taken his hand off of the thing, but I don't think that's necessarily important to conveying what you want to convey to the viewer here. So we don't really need a hold for it. We can just get it off of there, get it moving towards this thing, which is the meat and potatoes of this animation. Almost treat the taking off like a breakdown to just get to this next pose. I'd also, in that breakdown, have his fingers curled once again, just so you're getting that contrast. It will just give you a more interesting animation than going from fully open hand to fully open hand. It'll be a lot more interesting. Much like if you're doing a breakdown in a body mechanics animation. So then where you've taken that time from that hold that you did before, I think we can hold this grab, because that is important to us. We don't care that he's let go of the panel, because we get that because we can see his hand is not on the panel anymore. But we do want to sell the fact that he's picked this thing up and that this thing has some weight to it. Those are things which are important and help sell the story that we're telling to the viewer. So I do think having a hold here would help, and especially if we've got the time from before, even more of a reason to do a hold here. Again, just watch this wrist, make sure that it's not broken. This does feel cool. Again, just feeling a little broken in the wrist, not feeling the flow through there. Just make sure we're getting that in there. And then I also think it would be really nice to get a kind of twist in there where he's kind of put it in and then twisted it to secure it before he takes it off. And I think there's enough time. And it'll also give you a lot more flow to that hand rather than having this kind of disconnected hand pose there and then angle. It would be a lot nicer if we're kind of leading with the wrist here, where that's just twisted this prop and then we can take it off. Again, flow through the wrist, flow through the wrist. It feels like his hand is very much like 90 degrees, perfectly aligned to it. But in real life, you know, you'd have a little bit of an angle to it. You maybe wouldn't have the heel of your palm touching the pad as well as every single part of all of your fingers. You know, you tend to do things more in the fingers, and as things get heavier, it will transition down the hand into the heel of the palm. I thought it'd be cool to get a bit of interest here, just because we're obviously shooting in this direction. We can't then have this very clear gun hand pose, water pose. So I think we could twist this hand and get the kind of gangster pose where we've got the fingers out here, just a more of a sideways gun, add a little more visual interest to this. And then here, try to get that gun into silhouette. We don't see it at all here. It just, for all we know, he could just be having his fist out and just gesturing a fist towards this thing and it's somehow dying. So make sure that that gun is clear in silhouette and we can see it. I think what I'm drawing here is the parts of the hand are kind of stacked on top of each other. So we've got the thumb stacked on top of the fingers and we can't see any of this stuff here. It's not a very clear silhouette to us. You wouldn't be able to tell that this is necessarily a hand very quickly. But with this pose, you know, we've got the fingers in here, we've got the very clear gun, get the thumb out here, maybe even more, and just really sell the story of this. 100% clarity, 100% silhouette in the drawings. It will really help. And same thing here, just a little more flow. Get these fingers up, get rid of this awkward space here. Will feel a lot more natural. And then here, I think we can just overlap the hands, have a nicer flow through it, lead with the wrist, which is being led by the elbow. And this is not so much like loosening up the fingers so they're overlapping. When I say overlap, I just mean creating nice flow through the shapes is kind of going to give you that automatic free overlap through here. So if you're kind of leading with the wrist over a bit more, brings this line a bit more over here. This naturally comes more over here. So we just get that overlap without having to offset anything or do anything crazy in the graph editor. Then I felt like here, it would just be a nice point to kind of rest. It feels like this final pose is not really telling us anything. It feels a little awkward to be resting on that thing with two fingers up like that. So why not rest it as if you were holding a gun, which you might just kind of have it in your hand and then rest with the back of your hand. I think this is a lot clearer story-wise to have it as if he's kind of resting his gun, waiting for the next attack. So you've got the gun here and you've got the hand here on this, rather than this trying to be kind of neutral, but still having a gun in his hand and then losing the flow through this wrist. This will give you a nicer flow. It will give you a bit more storytelling. It's just a bit more interesting rather than flat, but these fingers are gone. You know, that's really the only visual difference between these and the hand angle. But yeah, that's everything. Thanks for sending this. I've not looked at first-person shooter game animation before, so yeah, thanks a lot, and I hope it helped. Bye!